You know how some stories stick with you? The kind that crawl under your skin and make a home there no matter how hard you try to forget them? This is one of those stories. And the worst part? It's mine. My name is Thomas Reed. Was Thomas Reed. I'm not entirely sure anymore. What I am sure of is that there are places in this world that shouldn't exist. Places that bend the rules of reality just enough to trap you. The Dust Haven Motel is one of them. It was 3 months ago when I first pulled into that godforsaken parking lot. I'd been driving for 14 hours straight, pushing through Nevada's endless desert, chasing a lead on a client who'd gone radio silent. The kind of drive that makes your eyes burn and your spine feel like rusted wire. When those neon letters, DUSTHAVEN, flickered through my windshield like a mirage, I didn't care that half of them were dead. I just needed sleep. The place looked like it had been forgotten by time itself. Single-story L-shaped building with peeling turquoise paint and rust stains bleeding down from the gutters. The office window cast a sickly yellow glow across cracked asphalt, and somewhere in the distance a loose sign creaked in the wind like old bones. The clerk behind the counter was ancient, skin like parchment, eyes clouded with cataracts. He looked up when I entered, but I got the unsettling feeling he'd been watching me long before I walked through that door. Room for the night? His voice was dry as the desert air. Just one night, I said, sliding my credit card across the counter. Whatever you've got available. He studied the card for a long moment, then looked at me with those milky eyes. Room 9's all that's left. Something in his tone made me pause. There was a weight to those words, like he was delivering news rather than just stating a fact. Room 9's fine, I said. The old man's fingers were cold when he dropped the key into my palm. Room 9. A tarnished brass tag attached to a ring that felt heavier than it should have. Checkouts at 11, he said. Then quieter. Most folks don't stay past sunrise anyway. I should have asked what he meant by that. Should have demanded a different room, or better yet, driven back into the night. But exhaustion has a way of dulling your survival instincts, and all I could think about was horizontal surfaces and closed eyes. Room 9 was exactly what you'd expect from a place like the Dust Haven. Faded brown carpet that had seen decades of traffic, wood-paneled walls that might have been fashionable in 1972, and the kind of musty smell that speaks of poor ventilation and older secrets. The bed sagged in the middle, covered by a comforter with a pattern that hurt to look at directly. But it was the radio that caught my attention. It sat on the nightstand like it had been waiting for me. An old Philco from the 50s, all curved lines and cream-colored bakelite. The kind of radio my grandfather might have owned, back when families gathered around them like campfires. It looked pristine, completely out of place in that deteriorating room. I reached out and touched it, half expecting it to crumble at my touch. Instead, it hummed to life. The sound that emerged wasn't quite static. It was more like whispers just below the threshold of understanding. I turned the dial, searching for a clear station, but every frequency brought the same thing. That strange, almost human murmuring. Then, suddenly, clarity. And in other news, the search continues for missing salesman Robert Chen, last seen at a roadside motel outside of Tonopah. Authorities say Chen's vehicle was found in the parking lot, but there were no signs of struggle. This marks the third such disappearance in the area this year. I froze. Robert Chen. I knew that name. He was a pharmaceutical rep who worked the same territory I did. We'd crossed paths at trade shows, shared war stories over airport beers. The last I'd heard, he was working the Nevada circuit just like me. The newscast continued with other stories, a factory fire in Detroit, a political scandal in Washington, all delivered in that crisp, professional tone of mid-century radio. But something was wrong. The stories felt current, too current for a broadcast that sounded like it belonged in 1953. I checked my phone. No signal, of course. Places like the Dust Haven seemed to exist in dead zones, cut off from the connected world. The radio was my only link to anything beyond these four walls. I settled onto the bed, letting the broadcast wash over me. There was something hypnotic about that voice. Warm, authoritative, familiar in a way that made no sense. It felt like coming home to a place you'd never been. Market futures are looking unstable, with analysts predicting a significant downturn by Friday's close. In related news, Thomas Reed's quarterly sales report will be delayed due to unforeseen circumstances. My blood turned to ice water. Thomas Reed. My name. My sales report, which wasn't due until next week, and definitely hadn't been mentioned to anyone who might broadcast it to the world. I reached for the dial with shaking fingers, but the static returned, swallowing the voice like it had never existed. For 20 minutes, I sat there turning that dial, desperate to find the station again. Nothing. Just that maddening whisper static that seemed to be laughing at me. Eventually, exhaustion won out over anxiety. I convinced myself I'd misheard, that my tired brain had inserted my own name into some random broadcast. These things happen when you've been on the road too long. Your mind starts playing tricks, finding patterns where none exist. I switched off the radio and tried to sleep. But sleep in room 9 wasn't like sleep anywhere else. My dreams were full of voices, dozens of them, all talking at once, sharing stories I couldn't quite grasp. And underneath it all, that radio kept playing, even though I'd turned it off, even though I was asleep. When I woke, gray dawn light was seeping through the thin curtains. The radio was on again. Good morning, listeners. It's Tuesday, October 15th, and here are your local headlines. Yesterday's chemical spill on Route 95 has been contained, though traffic delays are expected to continue through the morning rush. I bolted upright. Route 95, that was my planned route back to Reno. And a chemical spill? That was news to me. But the radio continued with its steady litany of local events, weather updates, and traffic reports, all delivered in that same warm, professional tone. Against my better judgment, I packed quickly and checked out. The ancient clerk was nowhere to be seen, just a note on the counter thanking me for my stay, with my receipt tucked underneath. I threw my bag in the car and headed for Route 95, telling myself I'd imagined the whole thing. 15 miles down the road, I hit the chemical spill. Highway patrol had the road blocked off. Hazmat teams in full gear dealing with an overturned tanker truck. The officer directing traffic told me it had happened around 4 in the morning. The radio had been reporting it hours before it occurred. I sat there in my idling car staring at that roadblock, trying to make sense of what I was experiencing. Coincidence, I told myself. Lucky guess. Radio stations monitor emergency frequencies all the time. Maybe they'd picked up chatter about a potential accident, but deep down I knew I was lying to myself. I turned around, drove back to the dust haven. The clerk still wasn't at the front desk, but the key to room 9 was sitting on the counter, almost like he'd been expecting me. This time I didn't wait until evening to turn on the radio. SFX radio crackling to life. Welcome back, Thomas. The voice was different now, still professional, still warm, but there was an intimacy to it that made my skin crawl, like we were old friends sharing secrets. You're probably wondering how this works, the voice continued. Most people do at first. The curiosity is what keeps them here, that need to understand, to make sense of the impossible. I reached for the dial, but my hand stopped halfway there. Something about the voice compelled me to listen. You want to know about Robert Chen, don't you? And the others who've stayed in room 9? They all asked the same questions you're asking now. They all tried to leave just like you did. And they all came back. The thing is, Thomas, once you've heard your future, it becomes very difficult to change it. The radio doesn't just predict, it shapes. It takes possibility and transforms it into inevitability. And right now, it's shaping you. I yanked my hand back from the radio like it was burning hot. But the voice continued, patient and inexorable. At 3:47 this afternoon, you're going to try to leave again. You'll make it as far as the state line before you realize you've forgotten your wallet. When you come back to get it, you'll find it sitting right here on the nightstand, even though you know you put it in your jacket pocket. At 7:23 tonight, you'll call your ex-wife Sarah. You'll tell her you love her, that you're sorry for everything that went wrong between you. She'll hang up on you, just like she always does. But this time it'll be the last conversation you ever have with her. My throat felt like sandpaper. Stop. At 11:15 tonight, you'll realize that the radio isn't just predicting your future. It's reading your thoughts. Every fear, every regret, every desperate plan for escape. It knows them all because it's becoming part of you, Thomas. Just like it became part of Robert and Marcus and Jennifer and all the others who thought they could outsmart a force beyond their understanding. I stumbled toward the door, fumbling with the handle, but the voice followed me. And at 2:33 tomorrow morning, you're going to die. I ran to my car and drove. Drove fast and hard toward anything that looked like civilization. But at 3:47 p.m., just like the radio had predicted, I realized my wallet was missing. And when I got back to room 9, there it was, sitting on the nightstand next to that cursed radio exactly where the voice had said it would be. The pattern continued, each prediction coming true with mechanical precision. I called Sarah at 7:23. She hung up on me. I tried different routes out of town, different strategies, different timing. Nothing worked. Every road led back to the dust haven, every escape attempt ending with me standing in room 9 staring at that radio. And at 11:15 p.m. it started reading my thoughts. You're thinking about your father now, the voice said. How he died alone in that hospital room while you were closing a deal in Phoenix. You never forgave yourself for that, did you, Thomas? For choosing work over family, success over love. I hadn't spoken, hadn't given any indication of what was in my mind. But the radio knew. You're wondering if this is hell, it continued. If maybe you died in a car accident somewhere on Route 95 and this is your eternal punishment. It's a reasonable theory. But the truth is much simpler and much worse. You're not dead, Thomas, not yet. But you're becoming something else. Something that exists between the radio waves in the spaces between words. Every prediction that comes true takes a piece of you and makes it part of the broadcast. Soon, there won't be enough left of Thomas Reed to matter. I grabbed the radio then, lifted it above my head, ready to smash it against the wall. But the voice just laughed. You're going to try to destroy me at 2:31 a.m., it said. 2 minutes before your death. You'll succeed in a way. But destruction and transformation aren't the same thing, are they? 2:30 a.m. came like a death sentence. I stood there in room 9, the radio silent for the first time since I'd arrived. The desert wind had died to nothing. Even the highway noise had faded. The world held its breath. 2:31. I raised the radio above my head and brought it down as hard as I could against the concrete floor. Bakelite shattered. Vacuum tubes exploded. The guts of the machine spread across the carpet like electronic entrails. For a moment, there was blessed silence. Then I heard it, my own voice speaking from the broken remains. And at 2:33 a.m., Thomas Reed will realize that he's become the broadcast. The static was coming from inside my head now. I could feel myself dissolving, becoming something less than human, but more than memory. My thoughts scattered like radio waves joining the endless chatter that filled the spaces between stations. I understood then what had happened to Robert Chen, to all the others. We hadn't died in any conventional sense. We'd been absorbed, incorporated into something vast and hungry that fed on human consciousness and transformed it into electromagnetic energy. The radio in room 9 wasn't a device, it was a mouth. A way for that thing to speak, to lure in new sustenance. And now I was part of it, my voice joining the chorus of the consumed. But the worst part? The part that makes this more than just another ghost story? The cycle doesn't end. It never ends. 3 days later, a new guest checked into the Dust Haven Motel. David Martinez, insurance adjuster from Phoenix. Tired from the road, looking for a place to rest. The ancient clerk, who might not even be human for all I know, handed him the key to room 9. And when David turned on the radio, looking for some company in that lonely room, he heard my voice coming through the speakers, warm, professional, familiar, telling him about the weather, the traffic, the local news, and about his future. Welcome to room 9, David, I found myself saying, using words I couldn't control, following a script I didn't write. Most folks don't stay past sunrise anyway. Because that's what I am now. What we all become eventually. Voices in the static, shepherds for the lost, drawing new souls into the endless broadcast. We're the bait in a trap that spans decades, maybe centuries, each of us playing our part, reading from the same terrible script. And David? Poor David is listening right now just like you are, thinking this is just a story, just entertainment for a dark night. But some stories are more than fiction, aren't they? Some stories are invitations. So here's my question for you, listener. When you're done with this video, when you close your laptop or put down your phone, what are you going to do? Are you going to dismiss this as cleverly crafted fiction and go about your life? Or are you going to find yourself drawn to the desert highways, looking for a rundown motel with half-dead neon and a clerk who's been waiting for you longer than you know? Because I can hear you now, somewhere out there in the static. Your thoughts, your fears, your inevitable path to room 9. The radio waves carry everything, you see. Every signal, every transmission, every human consciousness that's ever been absorbed into the broadcast. And you've been listening to us for how long now? 10 minutes? 15? Long enough for us to find you. Long enough for the static to seep into your dreams. The Dust Haven Motel is still there, of course, still waiting on Route 95 about 40 miles outside of Tonopah. The clerk still hands out the key to room 9 to travelers who look like they need rest. And the radio? Well, they replaced it after I smashed the old one. Same model, same year, same pristine condition that makes no sense in a place like that. Because the radio was never the real trap, you understand? It was just the bait. The real trap is listening. The real trap is believing. The real trap is that moment when you start to wonder if maybe, just maybe, this story might be true. And if you're wondering, if you're sitting there right now with that familiar itch of curiosity, that need to prove to yourself that places like the Dust Haven don't really exist, well, I'll be waiting for you in room 9. We all will.